Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hi, I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, and today is Easter for many folks, and it is the 4th of April, 2021. And we're talking about one of our inner planets, Mars. It's the first planet that's right immediately outside of, from the sun on the solar system, but very attached. We can see it in the sky. It's red. It's called the red planet. It does look red. In fact, I think it was last summer. It was in the sky so much, in the southern sky, it seems, because I faced southern and I could see it at nighttime. And I've moved since then. It has in mythology the planet of war. They all have their denotations, and it's a warrior, okay? We can be a warrior of defenses. We can be warriors of many causes. It's just how it's exhibited. And we're talking about the fact that it's out of bounds. Now, I tried to explain that in a little on KKNW, that hosts this Talk Cosmos program that I have a partnership with, that hosts the program wonderfully, as we are a YouTube now and a podcast. So there's a little, weekly I make a little article, and I was trying to explain about some of the astronomical denotations of out of bounds. And it's complicated. It's a whole subject of itself. It has language that you need to understand, the definitions. Generally, we can say, because various planets go out of bounds, not all of them, and some of them very little. Others, like the moon, it really can go out of bounds. And Mars has a certain distance that it can go out of bounds. As soon as it is from the equator, which is one way of measuring it, because the sun goes up to the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Those are latitudes, and they have a denotation because that's the path that the sun we experience where it can be overhead. Okay, astronomy, here we go. But the fact is that the planets can go, because of their orbital path around the sun, further out. And this matters because in astrology, part of the whole conceptual basis is to understand the physicality of these planets. It's not just woo out there. In fact, it's none of that. I'm a big proponent of astrology. Thank you. Yes. And so back to this point, if you're still with me, and that is that it can go beyond 23.27 degrees from the equator, which is a latitude point, and that means it's outside where the sun goes, and it's on its own path. It's like, ooh, we're out here doing what I'm doing, which is that planet and that sign. Well, right now Mars is in Gemini. Mars is assertion. It has instinctive, fiery natal ideas associated with astrology that go forward for action. It's an action planet. It is cardinal as an energy. And it's in the sign of Gemini. That's what we're doing. We're communicating, we're connecting, we're traveling. And it also gathers information. So it is on a trajectory of itself. All right. I hope you liked some of that. And there's going to be more talk by my wonderful Cosmic Collaboration Panel. We are now ready for it.
Investigating the deeper archetypal questions related to understanding astrological energetic aspects for growth patterns to unify mind, body, spirit, and emotions, this is your Cosmic Collaboration Panel.
I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, an evolutionary astrologer and consultant, plus a certified color energy coach. I explore creative expression as an artist, a musician, and write abundantly, stories to poetry. I love investigating mythology's language, philosophizing eternity, and I'm a perpetual student of life, seeing oneness of body, spirit of people, animals, and nature.
I'm Suzie Kerr Wright, astrologer, certified psychic medium, tarot reader, life coach, and Reiki master. I love to bring what I call cosmic common sense to the world through private sessions as well as all types of media. My work has been published in Chewy.com, Brides Magazine, Good Housekeeping, Cosmopolitan, Elle, Bustle, and more. And I'm a regular guest on Today in Nashville. I've had my own radio shows, and I was the weekly on-air astrologer for WSCA-FM. And I love to teach astrology and psychic development.
And I'm Amanda Pierce, a soul-centered astrologer, astrological consultant, and empowerment-based meditation teacher. I have a BA in psychology, I'm a wellness enthusiast with a passion for healthy eating, and I enjoy creating new realities and shifting old paradigms.
And like the Sufi poet Rumi says, you are the entire ocean in a drop.
Yes, here we are. So it's wonderful to greet you today. And we'll start off as usual on one thought that stands out to us to kind of ice break, right? The whole subject. And because it is Mars out of bounds, and I had this all in my head what I was going to do. Oh, that we're in this Aries stellium right now. Mars has a lot of crew members, you could say. He's delegating out a lot of energy with this and that. It's not just, it's not a simple affair. And they're all trying to communicate. They are in his sign of expressing something. But that also includes Aries, who is wanting the best way how to navigate things for the self. Okay. And whomever would like to speak next.
Oh, well, I'll go. So in looking at out of bounds planets and out of bounds people, it occurred to me that as far as one of the things that out of bounds people bring to us is that they reflect light back on our society. So out of bounds people and the way they express their out of bounds planets are, they might rub you the wrong way sometimes. So really they're great at reflecting back just where we're stuck in our personal or societal limitations or norms.
That's dynamic. And yeah, thank you. And Suzie.
That almost reminds me of like the full moon personalities. They reflect things back to people. It's sometimes difficult for people to deal with. But out of bounds stuff, I know enough to be dangerous with it, and I kind of gravitated to this topic. Looking for, I'd heard a talk about out of bounds planets and violence and murderers and serial killers, and I'm kind of fascinated by all that stuff. So I kind of went looking for connections to periods when they were out of bounds Mars, to see, just to kind of see, does it really exacerbate violence during that time, and just kind of in the collective energy, does it really affect the majority of people in a more negative way, I guess. And I found some really interesting, not interesting things.
Well, it is quite in our consciousness. We realize currently in the United States with the past week's events, and I will just state to our audience that Mars, it goes out of bounds periodically. When you look at the tables, it's not a total anomaly, but at
usually
this
about once a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this particular pattern will be from March 21st to May 4th. So it's going to be 8
May
weeks.
24th.
Oh, May 24th. Thank you, Amanda. Yeah. Yes, thank you very much. So in other words, from just a week prior, March 16th was the most unfortunate killing of the Asian hate crime in Atlanta. Then immediately following, it seems, just a few days after, maybe on the 23rd, 25th, there was Boulder with that shooting. Then there's Los Angeles, and then the Capitol. So we have certainly experienced a lot of violence, and that is one side of Mars out of bounds, possibly, and that's what will draw in. Although we, as the United States, have it natally. Our natal chart from 1776 is out of bounds. So it's not something that's, so there's a lot, hard to bring up immediate conclusions. And that's why we're having this conversation. I hear one of you wanting to say something.
Oh, well, it's just interesting that the US has that Mars out of bounds. And when you think back to when we became a country, what it took in order to break free from Britain, you know, it may have needed that Mars out of bounds energy to really do that.
It is that totally, isn't that a reflection? As we say that the moment, that's what astrology, as we all understand, is that it corresponds that climate, you know, looking especially at 2020 vision going backwards, but it does, and we will clarify that to be out of bounds, it's the sign is near the solstice points. That doesn't mean it has to be on the solstice, but it would be either Gemini or Cancer or Sag or Capricorn. And ours will have our Mars return on April 9th, interestingly, which will be at 21 degrees Gemini. So it's coming up.
Yeah, and that's a whole new cycle of Mars energy for the country. Like we're starting new, and interesting that we're it's coming up to it. We have had quite a few mass shootings in the country, and since March 16th, averaging about one mass shooting per day. That was per April 1st.
Interesting. I've got So the list from Wiki had 4. It had the 16th, the 22nd, the 31st, and the 3rd of April. So there may be some that they didn't log in or whatever. And it's kind of like, I don't know what constitutes like a mass shooting either. I just kind of did a Wiki thing, you know, for the research that I did, and just said, okay, you know, we're just trying to like break down and see where the clusters of violence were. And so, I mean, it kind of almost looks like the pattern that I was seeing through the years. I only went back to 2010 and started looking there. But yeah, now when Mars is out of bounds in this country, or you know, when it's out of bounds, just in general, it's that's not, like I said, that's not the only time that we have mass violence. Some of the bigger disasters happened, you know, at other times. But you know, again, the theme too. I was like, okay, so what's the theme? You know, is it when it's out of bounds? Is it, you know, or when it's in Gemini? Because again, it was in, you know, the 4 different signs. Mostly, it was in like the period of Gemini going into Cancer, right in between. It would there would be a crossover, and it seemed, you know, there's just a lot of schools would happen then. A lot of the school tragedies would happen then, and just, you know, in like Gemini Cancer type things, places, you know, it was there's nothing really conclusive, but it was kind of fascinating to see the pattern, you know. And I mean, I would say there's definitely a correspondence to it, but I'd be interested to know what the other, you know, to break it down to maybe types and
Well,
break it down a bit
I
deeper.
really thank you so much for this. And when I was reviewing different articles, because a person can Google, just to share with the audience, Mars out of bounds. There's various great astrologers that have commented, and there's people in many ways of looking at it. But because we're down to 4 signs, I know that with Cancer, for instance, which is one of the signs, those, because it brings forth the signs that is, and Cancer is a protective sign. It's claim to action is more of a nurturing, protective. That's when it really is exemplified, and it wants to be more peaceful. It feels better when it's exhibiting confidence through that. And when it's negative and worried, it turns more inward. So it in itself, even though it's a cardinal sign, and it wouldn't necessarily be, I think, immediately one of the signs that it's more of a troublesome for themselves rather than going outwards. They're going to create a lot of, go ahead.
And there were many, and this is what I was surprised at, how many I hadn't heard of. And the reason I hadn't heard of them were because a lot of them were domestic violence.
Oh, I see.
So there's one correlation that I don't know if anybody's really.
This is on the negative, but then okay, and then I quickly want to
Mm-hmm.
say, because I remember Stephen Forrest, that is revered as one of the leading astrologers and evolutionary astrologer also, but in many ways respected because he has beyond that, I think, with traditional, et cetera, because there are these types of astrology. But the fact is that, yeah, he is. He is a very astute educator of many astrology. Books he's written are fundamental. So what he was saying in this one article is that he expected to find so much violence also, which there is, but yet he was astounded that there proportionately there wasn't. That proportionately there is, and since we have it natally, I want to bring the balance factor in, that it is innovative, it is freedom feeling. When one has this, and we have this as an identity, it's part of our cultural identity of this country, is that we just really don't measure ourselves with what other people are acting like, which when it is deviant can be a problem. And also from the on the innovative side can be most exciting. It's like, yes, we're just going in that direction. But just to share that, yes, there is a problem, but it's not the majority. Go ahead.
And it's also, Out of Bounds Mars is also incredibly ambitious and driven, which is something that you can see in our country and in how we operate things. But I love that point that you made, Sue, about how it's so freedom loving. And it makes me, just reflecting back on the last few years of how we've had some of our freedoms curtailed, or maybe just the last year, I don't know, it goes back, and how that can lead to more violence. It can be a little more trigger happy, I guess.
Frustrating for people.
Yeah,
frustrating, definitely. Yeah.
That goes with this piece that I found that Tony Howard had written. I absolutely love this. I think it really sums up for me. It says, if you don't mind me reading it.
No.
It says, the out of bounds signature doesn't seek freedom. A person with a strong out of bounds signature might encounter, or doesn't seek freedom. It is freedom. This goes with what you guys are saying.
I love that.
And a person with a strong out of bounds signature might encounter restriction and react against it, but their inner experience, something inherent in their nature, is already free. It's already uninhibited. Others might judge their actions, and that goes to what you were talking about how, it can rub people the wrong way. Others might judge their actions, desires, or style as different or even wrong, but the out-of-bounds person is not likely to internalize that kind of criticism. Instead, they'll wonder what's wrong with the person that's judging them.
Yeah, like, why not? Exactly. On a positive basis. And, thank you. This ties in all of what I'm thinking too with the difficulties that we are experiencing, because we're having a rash of these problems. So it is a collective environment that's happening, and certainly the constrictions that we've been experiencing, necessarily we can say because of COVID and the health, but yet is, and then also this legitimacy of expressing one's hatred, that it's not just a negative thing to be shamed about, but perhaps legitimate, that went on with the last political administration, to be honest, from my viewpoint. So we have a environment that collected where people, it's synergetic. It's not just going to be one isolated thing, and one begins to realize that it isn't like a cause and effect exactly. It's this whole identity of a situation. So what I'm getting at is that one of the planets right now that is in, it also wants freedom, is Eris, Eris, the goddess of discord. And not that goddess from mythology is asking for a upsetting situation, but the questions that the focus, as Philip Sedgwick, another illustrious astrologer, astute in esoteric thinking, says that Eris wants to have its life included in a way that they claim it should be. So when you draw together people that are perhaps imbalanced with their emotional or how to express all this charged up, out of bound energy that's coming in, and then it goes back, and I know I'm threading a bunch of stuff here, but I'm thinking with the Gemini, that I think it was brought up in this conversation, versus the Cancer. It is how we think, Gemini, how we move, our transportation, it's a air sign with a fire energy of Mars. It's going to be more on a kinetic, impulsive, yes, idea, especially when it wants to get its opinion. We're in the south node of Sag still, righteousness in the worst case.
Yeah, and it could definitely show that way. It could also show up as kind of outside of the box thinking, or the ability to do the Aries Mars thing of just do it, but do it in a way that you've never been able to do before, or breaking free and doing something that you have been trying to get done and haven't had that push or that ability to really like thread through and figure out how to manage it, or how to make it happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know we're all going, yes. Because this energy can be visionary, it can be inventive, it's original. That's what freedom, it's away from what has been done, like coloring out of the box. But it can also be on the negative side, like where does freedom versus insanity, those lines of that. I mean, people that have had Mars out of bounds go from Albert Einstein to Judy Garland to, I think, Suzie, you have a host of people also that you were looking at. Mm-hmm. So there's ways. Oh, and another subject, oh my goodness, that we're coming up with this week is the George Floyd trial. Yes, that's from last summer. And of course, maybe because we're nearing the half break here, but we have a couple minutes. It's really like, what actions can we take to to get back on the sense of our humanities. I mean,
well, what is Mars? Mars is independence. Mars is independence, and what I feel like for in a way, this fighting for what different people believe, different people fighting for what they believe is right, is taking away independence. So it's this big explosion, Mars, of energy coming together. And what would be the out, more freedom, less freedom, more fighting, less fighting. It's like, what, where, and I mean, is this, is out of bounds? Does out of bounds help people, people that have Mars out of bounds? Does it help them swing the pendulum so far that, does the pendulum constantly swing so far in their life and then have to come back? Like, what, there's so many questions around, like what that could be,
Well, I'm in feedback. I'm going back to the idea I remember in Rome, because Mars was a patron saint. They did a lot of conquests, but in time it moved from Mars, which was greatly revered in that whole society. They had festivals, they honor, they went for victory, would go out, but it became Athena Palace later. Minerva, they had different Greek names, or same idea, but like different ways of saying a name, whether it was like Susan, Susanna, however you want to say, or Sue, different ways of commenting. But it was more strategy. So Mars in Gemini is more of a strategist, can be, because it's a thinking process rather than Taurus that wants to bank you over the head, when it gets on the shadow side, on the developmental side, the more primitive, as they call it.
And then again, it's like, yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense, because think about, I mean, I know I keep going to the negative. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just
we have to look at all the
things. But it's like, yeah, manipulation. What is happening to us now? We're being manipulated by words, violently manipulated by words.
Wow.
Triggered, manipulated.
Reactive.
It's all words. It's all, it's yes. Interesting.
Well, that is the weapon of Mars in Gemini. When one reads about it, is they use words as manipulation. And of course, it can be, oh my goodness, so many ways. And we're seeing it right in the court case. Well, we will return. This is Cosmic Collaboration with both Suzie, Kerr, Wright, and Amanda Pierce, and myself, Sue Rose Minahan. And we're talking about Mars out of bounds. We'll be back. Thanks.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We're currently in the period of Aries. By leaving a cycle based upon completion, the energy of Aries sparks initiation, creating action to separate into a new cycle of life. It's a fire sign, which means it will involve great emotion. And because separation may create resistance, it also takes great courage to break away to new ways of becoming.
This is June Rose Trimbach. I'm an astrologer and healer, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconscious.
Exploring new territory every day. This is Alternative Talk 1150.
Hi, we're back again, and April 4th, wishing everybody a great day, despite, because of all this great awareness, awakening, yes? And what comes to mind are two things. I remember in our pre-conversation, there was a question that Amanda, you had brought up, like, what does it mean individually and collectively? So that is a focus. And I was, in reviewing the events that just happened in one night, this was during this week, I jotted down some other issues that were happening besides these unfortunate shootings, because at that time I think it was just one that we had, not this. And what I noticed were causes that are really in the forefront, because collectively we fight, or independently we fight for causes, defense, like defend of freedom, yes, we're talking about, but also the improvement of any situation, and or just our cause, whatever it might be. And some of the public ones that came up was voting, which is a big issue these days, and the Amazon, which is a huge company, almost a country, I was going to say, in a way.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it bridges both sides of the continent now, in Northwest and over there in the South. And the union, because I think it's in Alabama that they're fighting to have a union, and there's pros and cons, but that's always, and evictions, landlord, because I think in the government there were changes in the laws that, although you can't evict someone, the lawyers, which always get into the mix, were saying that if they, and maybe it wasn't just lawyers, but I will say that if landlords posted an eviction, then it would make it so that even though they couldn't send them out, that the individual would go through process that then the government would supply monies and the landlords would get their monies. And of course, it's a whole spiral, we understand, essentially without any bad or good guys, really, in a sense, because of the systems that we have that support each other, that there's taxes and there's a city and there's the things that we use for these rents and taxes and whatnot that landlords have to have. We're in a huge transition, which is an understatement, but just to clarify again, which astrologically we could say in many methods. I mean, there's, if nothing else, a grand mutation of going from Earth orientations, Jupiter, Saturn conjunctions, to air. Besides so many cycles, it's a turning point. So these causes are, and then I don't know if you're pausing, if I should continue, or I will mention one other, and what, again, with the George Floyd trial, that in a way, absolutely, because it happens to be now instead of some other time, during when Mars is in Gemini, an air sign, cannot breathe. Mars, action, can be god of war. Killing is very, and it's going to go on for another 3 weeks in our consciousness too. That, and it had been, I know Cher was really slammed on Twitter because she was saying, oh, she could have helped. Well, the argument, and then again, this is interesting because I think it was Amanda who was saying that a person gets, there's criticisms, anyway, we'll say that empathy, because we have, the empathy card is huge always, in the sense that we have that planet, Neptune, in its 13 years, 14 years of Pisces, which is still has about 6 years, 5 years to go, empathy card. But Mars wants action, and that was it. So I think really, out of any cause of that trial that we're having for judgment now, is like, what actions can we take to, oh boy, the thinking.
Well, let me say,
yeah,
I'm gonna take that and run with it. With the, just looking at the transits that we have in April, April 3rd, 4th, I think it was yesterday. So yesterday or today, Mercury moved into Aries. So that means that it's in mutual reception with Mars. And so it's weaving in that out of bounds energy into that, that relationship. So this is like another point where we can kind of have some breakthroughs and trailblazing new ways of doing things or thinking about things. And then April 9th, Mars squares Neptune in Pisces, as you were just mentioning, Sue. And so this is a dynamic energy, but it can kind of like deflate that forward movement that we've had with all of the Aries energy. And it can make you feel a little bit wobbly. It's really more about needing to work through that Neptune fog in order to access the Mars energy. And they're both in mutable signs, Gemini and Pisces. So it's another great time to shake things up. And as far as like working with Mars and Neptune together, I like to say that you want to allow your inner guidance to direct your actions, and kind of tapping into I would say your connection with source, or your connection with the universe.
Perfect. Thank you for telling us this. And I'll be quick because it's a T-square astrologically. Yes, that return, on looking at the chart here for the U.S., using the Sibley chart, there's many others, 5:10 p.m., Philadelphia, July 4th, 1776. On this particular Mars return, every 2 years it happens, but April 9th at just after midnight, 55 minutes after midnight in DC, we're having that Neptune opposition. I think Amanda, you had brought that up. So it's an opposition to our natal one at 22 degrees Virgo. And this Mars is like saying, hey, let's just what you said, like either get through the victimhood, get through the negative side of saying that things are happening to me out of my control, which, yes, of course, but it's like working with source, working with spirit, not the religious ideas of Sagittarius with, thank you, it is Easter, but more the...
It's also dogmatic. It's more individualized sense of spirituality and I was sitting here laughing. I'm going, did you read my horoscope for next week? I finished, like everything you said was what I wrote in there. Not as eloquently, but yeah, it's all in there. That was just so funny. I'm like, I got nothing because she just said it.
No, I love it.
I love it. So, but yeah, that's it. My, short version for me is cutting through the BS. Let's cut through this BS and get on with it. Let's get on with it. And releasing that victimhood. And, there's, I was sitting here looking, as you were saying, I'm looking at the Neptune opposition. It's like, wow, that's really interesting. I pay attention to Neptune. The way Neptune is, sometimes if it's kind of there in my face, or if there's something fuzzy, I'll go look for it. And then other times it's like I don't even see it. That's so Neptunian, right?
It's so Neptunian. Yeah, exactly. And especially it being in Pisces, it's like, oh, there's actually a planet Neptune. I forgot that.
Well, it's still in that third decan too, that Scorpio decan. So this is really deep stuff, I mean, it's,
very powerful, very powerful. We have many times it comes across from other astrologers, and so I'm just expanding the credibility. But Neptune in Pisces is such a completely powerful energy that just seeps and dissolves and transforms in its way that. But right here is in our face to say, like Amanda, you were saying, this is a seed point for the next seed point catalyst, right? For the next 2 years. So we have an opportunity.
And so interesting that I didn't pick up on that it connects back in with Neptune like that there really is that opposition happening.
Yeah,
because we miss it.
But the beautiful part about this is if for victimhood, it's easy to say to somebody, "Oh, get out of victimhood," which I did say. But what I'm realizing as I started to analyze, like, okay, how is to take personal, because the polarity point, which our natal is in Virgo, take some kind of step, little daily step to empower some practice, or fix something, or heal something, or not, to take some initiative to realize that, and the message is how, but we do it with source.
Yeah, and in Virgos, it's about bringing in the source universe energy into our day-to-day lives, into that earth energy of being here on earth. And so any little way we can do that is a great help. Another thing about Mars Neptune energy is that it can be passive aggressive. So that's just something for us to look out for, and in ourselves or in others, because sometimes we do it and we don't even realize we're doing it until later down the road. And another nice way to work with Mars Neptune energy is, it's kind of like being the spiritual warrior. Like Mars is that warrior energy. And so kind of stepping up and stepping into your own warriorship for yourself is a spiritual act. And when you do that for yourself, you can then model it for others, and they see it and then reflect it back to society.
That goes really well with Aries, which I was reading again, that every person on a personal claims their life the way they need it. And it's getting, we say these things, but it's like, I know I, for years, wanted this. And now it is in relationship to getting centered, partly to clear. I mean, what is spiritual? It is that connection on the alignment of inner self. It's a process, right? It's not just, it's an ongoing process of centering. Suzie, or I know.
No, I'm just in agreement. I don't know.
I know. I'm trying to think of where to go next from here.
I'm going like, okay. And so, Mars there's so much more to unpack about that too, I thought I would just throw in a little curveball here with with our Mars return, our country's Mars return, at 21 Gemini, the Sabian symbol. I love the Sabian symbol.
Yes.
It's dancing couples crowd the barn in a harvest festival. So it's almost like a coming together, everybody's celebrating accomplishments and things. And, God knows we could all use a little more lifting up than crushing down. So,
and it sounds very fortuitous for the future, like us coming together again in group settings and having big parties.
Yep.
And so knock on wood.
The other thing, when you guys are talking talking about the that Neptune and Virgo, the opposition to Neptune opposition, and the Virgo piece of it, it's like, and kind of tying in that Mars energy too, with Mars rules like viruses and fever and all of that too. So, is there like, God willing, is there going to be a slow what's the word I'm trying to say? Dissipation of this entire mess that we've been living in for so long. Is there going to be, we've had these major breakthroughs, we've had that, with the vaccine and everything out there. So there's a lot that's shifting. And, I feel like, this is such a difficult life right now, and I'm not trying to be negative, but I mean, you can't deny that as humans we're all struggling, because we want things to be different, and we keep waiting. When is it going to be different? What time is that going to be? What aspect is going to make it different? What planetary condition is going to make everything suddenly different? Because it's just been so unusual. And this is kind of one of those times where that old expression, enjoy the journey. It's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
It's like kind of where that comes in, it's like, every single day, we're still moving forward. It's just,
Yeah.
there's with all the Aries energy, it's like we're just anxious. It's like can we just get this over with it? At least that's how I feel. But again, I have Mars out of bounds, so
I was gonna,
yeah.
But yeah, it is. It is difficult to just. It can be difficult to remember to stay in the moment, and understand that this is, we're not being thrown into a pile of crap so we can dig our way out of it. The digging is the fun.
I just realized, Suzie,
it's supposed to be the fun.
It's supposed
Smell
to be.
it, you're getting exercise.
Well, I just realized tying the two thoughts together here is like, how is it individually and collectively? Well, if it's collective, then that means find a cause. Like that is part of this whole transference, that not transference, but transition, because a transition is, we usually want guidelines. Well, there's a lot of energies, just like with Neptune and Pisces, that isn't have any guidelines. It's in this, it's the unknown. We're in the unknown. But if we can use some kind of a cause now that has some ramifications, especially if it has the improvement, because I'm also noticing with our chart, and for those people that we also have Uranus in Gemini, and the North Node is in Gemini. So the North Node, and that's the direction that we're trying to, during this period for the next year, until about January sometime when it changes, to gather more information. And it will, I think it is in the summer, in the middle of July, where the node will be exactly at 8 degrees conjunct. So it's an orb, right? It's like, so if we could find something that with like-minded people, that we could put this Mars energy into improving on any basis, that will funnel that idea to have a direction. And it could also be online, because Iran is, thinking of the communication source.
So you're saying that the North Node will conjunct the United States Uranus, and
yes,
you were thinking that was, when was that? Was that July?
I think it's in July. Yeah, I did make a chart, but I didn't pull it up. I mean, I have it,
okay,
but I think it was in July. Yeah, so it's we could say that's summer. We just started spring, so there's still about 3 months. But now with this Aries energy, you're saying, Suzie, that yes, wants to know how can we act. And I'm remembering, well, causes is a good one. Not just causes in a violent way, which we're experiencing on a public news way, but showing that there's much more good than there is bad, thankfully. Even statistically, when somebody that one of the articles I read is that anyway, there's like Stephen Forrest was saying, think of causes.
Yeah, and you can also think of yourself as a cause. I mean, Aries loves doing self-development.
I was going to say that. That's what I was trying to tie into the Neptune and Virgo. Yes. Perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So kind of like taking up a cause, because it has been challenging energies for all of us, but all of those challenges, it's very rich for moving through our own issues and working on ourselves. And like, it kind of puts your stuff right in your face, so that you can't really get away with it. And that's part of what the discomfort is, and that we want to just get away from. But, in some ways it can be a blessing to have that right there in front of your face, because it forces you to do something about it. And that's that Mars energy, that kind of square energy that we come up against during transits as well.
Yeah. So it's like, taking unique and different steps to, help yourself feel better, physically do better. I mean, we all sat around for a year, everybody, gained COVID pounds, it's like, so it's, taking small action towards getting healthier, coming out of that fog, is going to be so powerful. And, Virgo's all about healthy stuff, taking care of yourself. So
good.
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah.
I will mention a little breakaway here, that next week we have the Moonbeam panel. No, I'm all mixed up. Next week we have Planet Buzz. That's right, Planet Buzz. Yes, we had Moonbeam team last year. We have the 3 panels now, and then an extra independent group, which is, it's most exciting. Talk about new developments. I'm so glad. Here I am with Amanda Pierce and Suzie Kerr Wright for the Cosmic Collaboration that you're listening to April 4th about Mars out of bounds, and the USA has it. And natally, it's a freedom-loving, innovative energy that we're experiencing from March 21st, when we entered spring, to May 24th. So we have a few minutes here. Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody for their interest. Do comment. But yes, with that said, we can finish for a couple of minutes here.
I was just going to mention that because Suzie was mentioning about doing things outside the box, and how there's such a similarity to out of bounds planets to the Aquarius archetype, but it's like. But it kind of goes back to what you were saying in the beginning, Suzie, how it's not seeking freedom. That's really more Aquarius. It's the seeking freedom, whereas the out of bounds planet is the freedom. And so it's like it's a healthy expression. Well, maybe not always healthy, but in its healthy expressions, it's showing us how to be and live Aquarius energy in a way.
And be authentic and true to ourselves. Yeah, and that's what people want.
Well, it kind of is that, that saying, and I think I think Sue said this last week, but it goes back to that, put your mask on before assisting the children, It's like we've got to get back into our bodies, back into our own selves, and kind of clear the smoke and mirrors and the fog and the crap that's out there. And this is, look what happens when we do have a disaster. Neighbor helps neighbor. Nobody cares what side of the fence anybody is on. Nobody cares about that. Humans are, I believe that all humans are innately good. Okay, I really do. And so, if I didn't, I don't know what I do, but it's like I have to believe that. And so, when we start clearing away the fog, and the stuff that's so far out there, that we have no control over, that we have no power to change. It's like, again, it's just like, it comes back to us. So even in an out of bounds situation, eventually we've got to realize that, we're the only ones we can change.
And that really, as we close, to say, follows up with this on the 9th, with this Mars return that is polarized between the Neptunes of consciousness, of that we can fix things. That, in other words, if the house is falling apart, maybe clean out the gutter, maybe, clutter out the gutter of our life. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Suzie. And thank you, our wonderful listeners.
Thank you for joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic cycles of astrology. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.